Purim falls out on Sivan. Okay, let us begin from the 3 stars. This is a Farbrengen from the Rebbe of Shabbos Parsha Shlach, Mevorch Machodesh Tammuz, and it was the 23rd day of Sivan, which is tonight's date. Tonight and tomorrow is the 23rd of Sivan. That year it came out on a Shabbos, and the Rebbe pointed out the importance of this date. By the way, this is not the first time that the Rebbe pointed out how this date is so important, etc., but it was very powerful in the way how the Rebbe pointed it out in that particular Farbrengen. So we'll start from Yud Gimel. The Rebbe is continuing from what he spoke earlier in the Farbrengen, that in the Farbrengens he used to bring lessons from the Parsha of the week, used to bring lessons from the date on the calendar where applicable, etc. Used to bring lessons from the fact that Shabbos Mevorchim Tammuz, that has to do with Yud Beis Tammuz. So the Rebbe says, Noisef ala Yirah and Olmedes of Parsha Shvuah, Parsha Shlach, in addition to the lesson that's derived and studied from the Parsha of the week, which is Parsha Shlach, Yesh na gam Yirah hanilmedes makvias the Shabbos Mevorchim Tammuz me'achodesh. There is also the lesson that's derived from how the calendar falls out. That in that year, the Shabbos where we bench the month of Tammuz comes out in the days of the month, B'chav Gimel Sivan, on the 23rd of Sivan. Yesh lam svarim shebehem l'kodim hamoroi shiru b'choy me'ashana. Dvar yom b'yom. There are svarim that collect different events throughout Jewish history that occurred in every day of the year. One of those svarim is called Dvar yom b'yom. In the MEMS in the 1980s, I remember the Rebbe by Farbrengens used to many times referred to the Sefer when he would point out the significance of a certain date. B'sfarim elu mitzuyan, and in these Sfarim it is pointed out le'elu shaloi hayozorchim b'lavach, for those that do not remember it without the need of the Sefer. Sha'tarich the Chav Gimel Sivan meforish b'Megillas Esther, chapter Ches pasuk Tes, that the date of the 23rd of Sivan is actually explicit in Megillas Esther. By other Farbrengens, I saw the Rebbe said you don't even need these for him because even a child that learns Tanakh knows it. So this is not even a category of like other stories that you need to have Torah Shebal Peh to tell you this. A child even knows this without even knowing the Sefer. What does it say in Megillas Esther? After Haman was defeated and was found guilty, etc., Vayikaru Sofer HaMelech Beis Ahi, and the scribes of the king were called at that time, B'chodesh HaShlishi Chodesh Sivan, in the 3rd month, which is the month of Sivan, B'shloish of Esrim Bay, in the 23rd day of the month of Sivan. And what happened when they were called? And the pasuk continues about the event of that particular date. Was written like everything that Mordechai commanded to the Jews. And to all the different types of leaders, the shahs and the different types of officers and ministers of all the countries from Haidu to Kush. And what was written was L'toivosam shel bnei Yisrael, for the benefit of the Jewish people, Behesam l'retzonim shel Mordechai, in accordance with Mordechai's desires. In other words, what Mordechai commanded, that's what the royal scribes wrote, which was at that time that Mordechai commanded that they should be allowed for the Yidden to defend themselves, which seems to be quite apropos that we're fighting Persia again, and we need to defend ourselves. So, like we'll soon see, Hashem tells Mordechai to say what we should do. The pasuk continues, the runners went out, rushed and chased, and great haste by the command of the king. Mordechai went out from before the king in a royal garment, or the garment of the king, and the city of Shushan was rejoicing and happy. Loirak HaYehudim Asher b'Shushan doesn't just say that the Jews that were in the city of Shushan. Ela ha'ir Shushan b'chlalusa, the entire city of Shushan. Perhaps this is similar to what we're told the whole time, that really if not just a lot of Persians are very happy with what Israel is doing to Iran now. So the whole city of Shushan, not just the Jews, was rejoicing. And also it says, in addition to the city, it also says that the Jewish people was light and happiness and gladness and glory, Simcha v'sasan liYehudim, joy and happiness for the Yidden, Mishta v'Yom Tov, celebration and a holiday, v'rab ma'amartz misyadim, and many of the nations of the world became Jewish, kinafal pachta Yehudim aleim, because the fear of the Jews fell upon them. So this wasn't like your average person thinks that this took place. The Rebbe points this out in other places. Don't think that this took place on Purim. Usually, when we read about Yehudim ha'isa'ir v'simcha v'sasam v'kar, the Jews were happy and rejoicing, and v'yir shushan tzala v'samecha. Usually, the first thought that falls into our mind is that this occurred on Purim. Purim was the 14th. Was the 14th of Adar. Almost a year later, it's like 9 months later. Calculate from Sivan to it's 8 months later from Adar. So it was really the war and the celebration of Purim only happened 8 months later. But 8 months prior to that, on the 23rd of Sivan, the Megillas are raised saying La Yehudim ha'isa'ir v'simcha v'sasam v'kar. From the simple reading of the Psukim, it indicates all of this, which we are now talking about, the runners and the writing of the letters and the rejoicing, all took place on the 23rd of Sivan. Both concerning the sending out of the runners, the since this had to be done with great speed. That's why the runners went out rushed and with great haste. It's self-understood. If they were in such a big rush, they wouldn't wait till next week to go. Obviously, as soon as the letters were written on the 23rd of Sivan, they immediately ran out. And also concerning that the Jewish people should know about this, that Mordechai went out with royal garbs from before the king. And the city of Shushan was happy and rejoicing. It doesn't make any sense that Mordechai would delay letting the Jewish people know of the good news. Surely it was made well known immediately on the 23rd of Sivan. And the Rebbe goes on to say, even if somebody wants to be stubborn and say that the continuation of these different events occurred after the 23rd of Sivan. So first of all, first of all, they were in close proximity to the 23rd of Sivan, and Beis, and secondly, V'ikir, primarily, the beginning and the cause of the matter was on the 23rd of Sivan. So since, like the Rebbe always says, that the cause and the beginning of everything includes everything else, like Rosh Chodesh includes all the days of the month, Rosh Hashanah includes all the days of the year. The same thing, the fact that this all began on the 23rd of Sivan, so whether they actually found out on the 24th or the 26th or whatever, that's irrelevant, because the whole process began on the 23rd of Sivan. What does that mean to us? The Rebbe says in Yudalit, V'hinei, Kol Inyoni HaTorah, all matters of Torah, Kol Sipuri HaTorah, including also stories of the Torah, Nitzchim Hein. These are everlasting. Moving from this understood, Shebechav Gimel Sivan Deishana B'Shana, that on the 23rd of Shivan, Sivan annually. Nifol mechodesh ha'inyan ha'mesuper b'toyroi d'schaf gimel Sivan is affected anew. The idea that's related in the Torah about the 23rd of Sivan, it repeats itself again and again. And the Rebbe in the brackets just explains that even though Megillas Esther is called an Igeres, but it's still part of the 24 Sifrei Kodesh, and because they are part of the 24 Sifrei Kodesh, therefore it is everlasting, just like any other part of Torah which is everlasting. Skip the brackets to the last paragraph on the page. Koloimar, this means to say, B'chav Gimel Sivan M'dei Shana B'Shana, on the 23rd of Sivan every single year. Nikroim Soifrei HaMelech, the scribes of the king are called. Who is the king? Malkoi Shaloilom, the king of the world. Like it's brought down many places that wherever it says in Megillas Esther, HaMelech, without saying HaMelech HaShveirush, it's going on Hashem. It's going on Malkei Shaloilom, like it says, Balayla hu nodash nas HaMelech. It says that the sleep of the king escaped him. It's going on Nodada Malkei Shaloilom Kaviyachal, Hashem's sleep escaped him. And even more so, it's explained in Sfarim that even the name Achashverosh hints at Hashem. Why? Achashverosh can be divided into two words, Achris Vereishis, Sha'achris Vereishis Shaloi. The king of the world, that the end and the beginning is all his. He rules from the beginning to the end. He's in control of all of this. So that means the scribes of the king, meaning the King Hashem, are called on this date, on the 23rd. Every single year on the 23rd of Sivan, Hashem's scribes are being called. Vehem koisvim kechol asher tziva Mordechai goimer. And they transcribe whatever Mordechai tells the scribes of Hashem to transcribe. Hashem gives the order that whatever Mordechai says is to be written down as fact and as a decree. Now, who is Mordechai? One might come and think it's going on the Tzaddik Hador, the leader of the generation. So the Rebbe says, no, every single one of us is called Mordechai. The Koya Kol Echad Ve'echad Mi Yisrael, it refers to every single Yid that is known as Am Mordechai, the nation of Mordechai. Why is the nation of Mordechai known as Mordechai? Since we know that Mordechai's approach to things was he did not kneel and he did not bow down before the idols, like he did not kneel and not bow down before Haman. And the question always arises, so Mordechai didn't kneel and bow down before Haman. Why would Haman want to destroy all the Jewish people? Because he gidulai, that I've always emphasized, Am Mordechai, he gidulai, they told him, there's a whole nation of these stiff-necked people that will not kneel and bow down before you. So in other words, the Rebbe is saying that every single Yid embodies the Mordechai, because every single Yid are such that will not kneel and bow down before idolatry. So because of that, every single Yid is a Mordechai, and the Rebbe says he's so important, the important words over here, that he now becomes, every single Yid becomes the one that's in control, and he commands what to write. Like everything that Mordechai commanded, that is what's supposed to be written. In other words, a Yid commands and says what should be written, and Hashem does it. And not just Hashem does it, that it will take a delay, but how did it take place? So the Megillah goes on and says it was without haste, it was in a big rush, and all of this is affected in the way of speed. That with very quickly his words will rush. Like it said, that the runners went out, chased out, and with haste and were rushed. And it comes down very, very much below. Specifically in matters and ways of nature. Al derech hamesupar b'Megillah, just like it's related in the Megillah, vayishlach sforim b'yadarotzim b'susim roich v'arechesh ha'achtaronim b'nei aramakim, that the books were sent out in the hands of the runners on the horses by the special riders, those special talented riders and runners, meaning inyanim shel teva dafke, that the messages was transmitted in a natural way. And the Rebbe in the bracket says that even though in Chazal there are different situations where it says about riding on an animal in a supernatural way, but here we're talking about specifically in nature. The same thing, all the brachas of Hashem that come down on the 23rd of Sivan should come down here below in this world in the natural way. Skip the brackets. Vayomim ha'ela niskarim v'naisim. And these days of Megillas Esther are remembered and they are done. So the Arizal connects the two things. They're remembered and being done. Kimavur, because Arizal explained in the Arizal's writings, Shakasher niskarim kideboy, when they are remembered as is appropriate, Azayin nasim, so then they are done. Shuv oisam and yom shoyu pamre shoyna. Again, those very matters that were taking place the first time around, that these are repeating themselves. So just like when in general the Arizal says this is the lesson from the Megillah Hayom Emelon Niskarim V'Naisim. So the same thing in our topic that we're discussing on the 23rd of Sivan, similar in our topic. When we remind ourselves and recall the way we're supposed to about the above-mentioned event that took place on the 23rd of Sivan, and all these things occur anew. Then he goes on and says, Tesvav biur hayral nulmedes makvias the Shabbos and Vorkim Tamas b'chav gimel Sivan b'negel lepoil. The explanation of the lesson that's derived from the calendar falling out of Shabbos Mevorkim Tamas on the 23rd of Sivan, the way it came out that year, b'negel lepoil, concerning actually what we have to do. Kasher toivim Yehudi lasik b'afot samayonos chutza v'mokum merachechul. When we demand from a Jew to be involved in spreading the wellsprings outward in a distant place, ba'ofen shel Shlach, in a way that we're sending him. Sending shows on a trip. Kanal barucha, like the Rebbe spoke earlier in the Farbrengen at length. Yachol litoin, the Jew could come with complaints and say, Mekiven shnimtzoyim mechaysha kafel mechupel tizman hagolos, since we find ourselves in the double and quadruple darkness of a time of exile. How could he be assured that I'll be successful in all these activities? L'chura, seemingly, the very going out to have an effect in a distant place is like going to a place of danger. One may not rely on a miracle to go out to a dangerous place. For this, there's a special empowerment of the establishment of Shabbos Mevorkim, the month of Tammuz, and the 23rd of Sivan. Then the scribes of the king, which means the king of the world, are called. And they transcribe everything that Mordechai commands. I'm Mordechai, every single Jewish person who is called the nation of Mordechai, Nasa Balabayis Al Klolos Hanhogas Oilam. He becomes in control, he rules over the entire way how the world runs. To the degree that all matters in the world are now going to function in accordance with the will of a Yid. Like everything that Mordechai commanded. This means the same. Regardless of the state and situation that was up till now. Which was just like in the times of Megillas Esther, from the time of Haman choosing the date until Chav Gimel Sivan, things didn't look too good. Despite all of that, the Torah of truth says that on the 23rd of Sivan is affected the idea that the the scribes of the king are called, and everything is written down like Mordechai commanded. Ad l'siyum inyan, until the conclusion of the topic. That to the Jewish people was light and joy and gladness and glory. Just like it was in those days, in the days of Purim, despite the low state that Yidden were in. And we're not just talking about in the material sense, but also perhaps in the spiritual sense. It says, the Chazal derive, it says, Haman said, Yeshnoi am mefuzar mefoired bein ha'amim, that there is a nation that's scattered and spread out amongst the nations. And the Chazal play around with the word Yeshnoi, and they change the nekudas, and the vowel signs, and they make it sound like Yoshnu, that they slept, that they were sleeping when it came to the mitzvahs. And because of that, it caused by Hashem's sleep that he was like Kaviyachal sleeping, and then there was Hashem had to wake up from his sleep, etc. Va'ad kedei kach, to such a degree, shaya bezdin mesuyim shepasak gzeira iyum avnei Yisrael achman l'slan, that there was a certain bezdin, I guess he's talking about the bezdin shalmaila, that decreed a terrible decree against the Yidden. Hashem should preserve us. Afal became, despite all of that negative, Kashabah HaTayrich, the Chav Gimel Sivan, when the date of the 23rd of Sivan came along, in Eloizel Bavad, and his Batla Gzeira, Shenichtva Beigres HaRishainis, not only was it nullified, the decree that was written in the first letters, Al Derech Mashakosov Parcheseinu Salach Kidvarecha, similar to what it says in our Parsha, I've forgiven like you have spoken, Va'achloi Nishar Menu Roishim Klal, to such a degree that no remnant of it and no mark and impression was left of it. Even more so, that the scribes of the king were called, and it was written like everything that Mordechai commanded. That a second set of letters were written, that their content was from one extreme to the other, just the total opposite of what was written initially, in a way of transforming and turning it over, that the Jews will instead rule over their enemies. To such a degree that many of the nations of the earth became Jewish because the fear of the Eden fell upon them. Only through the great, and specifically through the great descent that took place via the decree of Haman, was affected the advantage and the quality of the days of Purim, in the ultimate ascent, in a way that the joy is to when we do not know even to distinguish between blessed is Mordechai and the opposite, to such a degree that Purim is beyond the joy of all other Yom Tovim. To such a degree is the joy of Purim and the Yom Tov of Purim so powerful, that when Mashiach comes, all the Yom Tovim will cease except from the days of Purim. Like it's explained on Marich Chassidus, that the revelation of all the Yom Tovim will be nullified like a candle in the noonday sun in comparison to the revelations that will be when Mashiach comes, as opposed to the revelations of the days of Purim, because the great quality and the power of the revelations of the days of Purim, not only they will not be as nullified as a candle in the noonday sun, like all the other Yom Tovim, that because the great powerful sun of Mashiach's times, they do not hold a candle to it, like the expression goes. Even more so will take place when Mashiach comes. Through the Yom Tov of Purim, the light will be added to the noonday sun, to the powerful sun and revelation of Mashiach's times. That from this understood the great quality of the days of Purim. Like we said, all of this is affected through the great descent, etc. In a similar vein is understood concerning the general service of spreading the well springs outward, despite the darkness of the exile in the way of a double and quadruple darkness. In the Shabbos Mevorchim Chodesh Tammuz Shechal B'Chav Gimel Sivan, the Shabbos Mevorchim of the month of Tammuz that comes out on the 23rd of Sivan, Yeshnon Nesinas Koyach Miyuchedes, there is a special empowerment. Shekol Ha'inyonim Yu Behesel L'Ritzayin Shkolecha Vech B'Yisrael, that all matters should be appropriate to the will of every single Yid. Kechol Asher Tziva Mordechai, like we said before, that's hinted in the pasuk, like everything that Mordechai commanded. Uba'ofen de la Yehudim Ma'israel V'Simcha V'Sasam V'Kar, in such a way that to the Yidden was light and joy and happiness and glory. To such a degree that many of the nations of the earth became Jewish. And those that remain Goyim, they fulfilled the mitzvahs that the children of Noach were commanded in the appropriate manner. Just like in the days of Purim is affected a special advantage through the great descent, so too it's understood concerning the general service of the spreading the well springs outward in the darkness of Golus, only and specifically out of the great descent, that we need to go and influence and affect in the distant place specifically. Through that we arrive at the greatest ascent. All this is affected while we're still in the time of Golus. Similar to the miracle of Purim. It was still in a situation where we were still considered servants of Achashverosh, and still we had all of this great power of the times of Mordechai. One second. Okay, let's continue. We get adding this, Purim, concerning the days of Purim, even before the decree ceased. There was a situation where I will surely conceal my face. Skip the brackets where the Rebbe says this is why Esther is called Esther, because of Hashem's concealment. Esther was already in the royal house. There was already the possibility for the decree to be nullified. As long as the Yidden were externally in a negative place, skip the parentheses, the matter was not yet revealed in the existence of the world in a revealed manner. Until the state of the Yidden became the way it's supposed to be, in a way that they will not kneel and not bow down, also in a revealed way that they demonstrated their devotion to Hashem. And when the Yidden demonstrated their devotion to Hashem, then was affected the miracle of Purim in a revealed way in the existence of the world, beginning from the 23rd of Sivan. Let's skip over to the next page, Ois Yud Zayin, third paragraph on the page. V'zohi klolos hayron l'medes mekfiyas the Shabbos mevorchim tammuz part of Shlach u'b'chav gimel Sivan. This is the general lesson that's derived from Shabbos mevorchim tammuz in the part of Shlach in the 23rd of Sivan. Shebenegel l'chol ha'pulos hakshuras mafotz hayadus mayonos chutza, concerning all activities that are connected with spreading Yiddishkeit and the well springs outward. Skip the parentheses. Ein mal lispol mecheshkos hagolos. We do not have to be affected by the darkness of the Golus. Since there's a special empowerment that's affected in this day. And the scribes of the king were called in that day, in that time, in the third month, the month of Sivan, the 23rd of it, and was written like everything Mordechai commanded, until it came about the idea that the Yidden was light and joy and happiness and glory in a revealed way. Like we spoke about many times, that it's brought down to the Torah concerning the influence of the going up to Yerushalayim on each one of the pilgrimage Yom Tovim, on each one of the Gimel Regalim. From every one of the three Regalim and Yom Tovim, the bittul that was experienced then, that we bow down before Hashem and the Beis HaMikdash, and spiritually we have that as well, and it continues and its influence goes on till the next Yom Tov. Move on, so it's understood Shekenu Gam Benegel and Sinas Koyach Hakshurim Kfiyas Miuchedes, that so too it's concerning the empowerment that's connected with a certain specific date on the calendar. This empowerment influences and affects all the days following it, until the future, the next time that the calendar will come out of Shabbos and Vorkim Tammuz and Parshat Shlach and the 23rd of Sivan. And then the Rebbe goes on, speaks again about spreading Yiddishkeit and Torah mitzvahs and the Mivtzoim. Skip the next paragraph. Through this also is affected the light and joy and happiness and glory in the simple sense, because the pasuk does not leave its simple meaning. Even more so, first and foremost, there's a simple meaning of the verse. Afterwards is followed by other medrashim of Chazal. Like it's spoken about many times, all the meanings of one word are connected with each other. And speedily we merit that one geula is brought close to the next geula, that from the redemption of Purim, that it begins on the 23rd of Sivan, in such a manner that for the Jewish people was light and joy and happiness and glory, in such a state and situation where we are still the servants of Achashverosh. We come to the true and complete redemption through Mashiach. Like we said before, in a way of bringing the redemption close to each other. Immediately they're redeemed. All this is affected through our general actions and service throughout the time of exile, in such a way that you will send out your bread on the waters, because in the many days you will find it. Especially that much days has already passed, so for sure we're going to find the results immediately of our actions and service. From this we leave the exile to the future redemption. We come to our holy land. Like it says like we said earlier in the Farbrengen, where it says in our parsha, Hashem already told them that they will enter at Yisrael, in the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu, will come, redeem us, and lead us upright to our land speedily on our days, mamash.